All right, we'll get started, everyone. My name is Carly. Welcome to tonight's webinar. I am a current third-year medical student at the University of Colorado in Aurora, Colorado. And tonight's webinar is to have a fun interactive discussion for medical students and faculty all over the United States to interact with one another and share ideas about our interest groups and give advice and recommendations to those who may not have started an interest group yet or are interested in doing so. We have a lovely group of panelists today that will be answering questions, but I'll be polling the audience. So we'll look for your interaction, and then we'll go into discussion with the panelists. So today we have two faculty champions, Dr. Angel Bermudez who's a faculty advisor at Central Michigan University, and then we also have Dr. Justin Young, who is a faculty advisor at the University of Hawaii. As for our student representatives and officers from our medical school interest groups, we have Jessica Buttinger, who is our MSIG AMSSM president and is representing Central Michigan University College of Medicine of Mount Pleasant, Michigan. We have Jacob Charon, who is representing Michigan State University from the College of Human Medicine of East Lansing, Michigan. Jessica Jewell, representing Washington State University. Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine of Spokane, Washington. We have Mylan Oskbring, representing the University of Arizona College of Medicine of Phoenix, Arizona. Sarah Pedevin, from LSU Health Shreveport School of Medicine of Shreveport, Louisiana. Ryan Pearson, University of Texas at Austin, Dell Medical School of Austin, Texas. And then we also have Jose Ramirez, who's representing the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine of Miami, Florida. A whole lot of names, a whole lot of information for you all tonight. And this webinar will also be available posted later as well. And so you can also access it at a later time if you desire. So to get started tonight, we're going to be doing a few poll questions. Let's see if I can pull it up. And the first one is just some general information. And
what are you doing? What are you doing? Just lying there doing nothing?
Israeli jets have breached Iranian airspace.
All right.
Activation complete.
You can go ahead and answer, and then I'll wait probably 30 seconds or so for each poll to make sure that everyone has the chance to answer. Excellent. All right. All right, 10 seconds. Great. All right, I'll share the results with everyone. So looks like we got mostly medical students, a couple of faculty advisors, and then most of us have medical or interest groups at our school. And we either have a few people that don't have interest groups or are interested in starting a group at their school, which is great. And that's the whole point of this webinar. So we'll go into a panel question, especially for the faculty advisors. Our question for you is, what, in your opinion, is kind of the basic starting steps students need to implement a successful interest group?
I guess I'm first here. So one of the things that I think is most important is getting a good leader, and whether it's a faculty leader or a student leader, just someone to get the group together. And then once you come together, writing kind of like a mission, like, hey guys, what do you want to accomplish? And is it just to get exposure to the field of sports medicine? Is it to volunteer? Is it to learn something that may help on STEP, those kind of things. And then we all try to plan to get together at 1 to 2 events, whether it's a general meeting or a community service event. Of course, with coming out of COVID, it was hard to do that over the past few years, but in general, that's what our goals were doing when we started our interest group.
And to piggyback off of Dr. Young, I would say, just 30,000 foot view, broad spectrum, pretty basic principles, some faculty support, some invested student leaders, a way to communicate with your group. Obviously, meetings like Dr. Young had mentioned, some autonomy, and so that you can run the group the way that you see fit for your student body to meet the needs of your local community. Piggybacking off what Dr. Young had mentioned, a direction and a structure for the group. I think sustainability also has to be underlying one of the principles, and just opportunities to get involved. I think if you can have those as the mainstay of the building blocks of starting your SIG, I think you can have a pretty successful SIG if you just keep those basic principles or tenets in mind. We can expand on those later as the group sees fit.
Yeah, that's really thoughtful input. Thanks so much for your recommendations. As for the student panel, most of you have interest groups at your school and are probably involved. What have you found is most successful in your interest groups in particular?
I'll say that I kind of echoing what Dr. Young and Dr. Bermudez just said, is that finding a faculty member who actively wants to be involved and work with you makes such a big difference. We kind of, coming out of COVID, we had a very weak sports medicine interest group, and then we had a faculty member who we are able to become like our faculty champion, our leader for our group, and then we sat down, planned out a bunch of events together, and just had our goals that we wanted to achieve. That just made such a big difference for the involvement and for the things that we're able to do as a group.
So, I apologize. I see a raised hand. But what I was going to say is at our school, it's actually very unique in terms of we were not allowed to develop a sports medicine specific student interest group because it was already embedded within the orthopedic group. So the strategy there for really making sure students got as much exposure and experience with the different fields from which you can enter sports medicine is doing a lot of crossover events with other student interest groups. So doing a crossover event with PM&R or crossover event with ultrasound or with family medicine, just so they get really the holistic picture of what sports medicine involves, because with it being embedded, it definitely makes it, if I don't want to go into surgery, this isn't the field for me. And so that was really the goal with partnering with this organization, is obviously really showing students there's so many paths to the same destination.
Great point. Dr. Bermudez, did you have something to add?
Actually, to both points, yeah, to Mylan's point earlier, having a core faculty that's really invested in the group is essential. And I think, when you're starting your group, for those of you who are interested, and when you go ask a faculty member or an attending to, hey, will you support and sponsor us and get involved, express to them that there's going to be a time investment on two fronts. The initial of getting the group started in terms of the attending who's likely a sports physician who's out there in the community already doing sports things, so to speak. And that's just providing that platform for the students to jump on and get involved. But then also the attending is going to have to be supportive in helping the students find their own way and supporting them when they have autonomy and wanting to start to take the group their own direction. So when they say, hey, I want to start a 5K or do other types of community involvement, they can't do that on their own. They need the attending to be there and support. And to what Jessica had mentioned about not being able to start SIG and just being embedded in another program. An introductory meeting, I know that we do that at CMU, also helps everyone to understand, hey, these are the different pathways to get involved in sports. And you can learn, through ER or IM or PEDS or PM&R, family, ortho, et cetera, and make it, accessible to everyone to kind of dispel that notion of you have to be ortho surge to do sports. Just thought it might offer some help for others.
Yeah, I was going to just touch on too, at our school, we kind of created a leadership track because our biggest, something we talked about as leaders for our student interest group and with Dr. Bermudez is that sometimes you have individuals that, very clearly are interested in sports medicine, and sometimes when they graduate, some of the events that maybe they held or the initiatives they did in the community, the last thing you really want is that for those to be forgotten or kind of fall by the wayside. And so we have student leaders, and we call it, a student senate. And so we have leaders in each class of the medical school, and we're kind of in constant communication. And the beauty of that is our medical school has different campuses across the state of Michigan. And so it really allows us to have a very broad outreach for sports medicine coverage, whether it's high school coverage or training room, or covering, mass events, like whether it's a 5K. So that's been really great, and something, that I think is unique to our school, and that we have, 6 to 8 leaders that are all coming together at those different campuses. And like I said, working kind of as a unit.
Ryan, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to second most of you guys' opinions. I think success is determined by the context of your program as well. We had the opposite program of Jessica. Our orthopedic, we couldn't create an orthopedic interest group, and our PD in orthopedics here at Del Med is sports med. So that's really what we started off as. We were the sports medicine / orthopedic surgery interest group. And from there, we built out the primary care side. And we have Dr. Guzman, who is a great sports med primary care doc here in Austin, Texas. And he's helped us build out some of this, expanding our sports med interest group into this organization too. So I think success is really determined by your organization. We're a very small med school. We don't have the opportunities that some of y'all have with getting multiple people in each class. We're lucky if we get 5 people in each class to be excited about this, because most of us want to go into orthopedics. And generally we only have about 3 or 4 of us that apply each year. So most of our job is convincing people to go into primary care side, which is interesting. It's counterintuitive to what you think of most orthopedic interested students. So I think that we found success in trying to increase interest in the primary care side, and that's helped us take care of a lot more of events that way.
Yeah, speaking as a representative from CU, we have a rather small interest group, but it's pretty profound in the available opportunities that we have. So whether it's shadowing on sidelines for either football or college games, or working with mass events like ultra marathons, or even just volunteering in the community with high schools as well, allows a lot of opportunity. And I think that I kind of found an interest group, and it wasn't really active. And so I think being able to transition leadership is a really important step in not only building a student interest group, but also ensuring that it is sustainable, as Dr. Bermudez was saying earlier. Go ahead, Jacob.
So one thing that we found that was helpful was just direct to student communication to not just the people in the sports medicine interest group, but just for the sending out communication to all the student body and broad. We'd for all our events that would hold to be sent out not just to our group, but just to every student in the whole college. So we found that was helpful, because we get students who aren't interested in sports med, but they're able to benefit from some of the events that we hold too.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I think what helped with our success is that we do have a faculty advisor who really champions getting people interested early. At our school, a lot of times the more clinical opportunities will go to upperclassmen. And our faculty advisor is really good about bringing first and second years in to shadow and to see what's going on. And usually when we can get them interested through the more hands-on route, they're then more willing to come to things like workshops or I'll go and learn this. And so it's really good for our success. What helped a lot was gauging interest earlier.
And that's one other thing that I'll add. A lot of medical students don't know what sports medicine is. And so explaining that it's not a residency and that it's a fellowship and you can get there a lot of different ways is, I think, really important for getting students involved, because they're like, well, I'm interested in PM&R or I'm interested in orthopedics. And you're like, you can still be part of the sports medicine interest group. Like, we're all kind of going the same place. So just making it clear to students what sports medicine is and where it comes in the track of medicine as well. With that, I think we'll go on to our next little session, unless anyone has any burning comments that they'd like to share. I'll launch the next poll. First of all, are there any questions from the audience about or any particular questions that you have at this point?
I have a quick question. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't know how to raise my hand. So I figured I'd just turn on my mic. But I have a question pertaining to like the transition between like preclinical sciences and like clinical sciences. I'm currently like an IMG. I'm at a Caribbean school, and a lot of our like third years and fourth years are now in the US instead of in the Caribbean. So I guess a lot of other people fall into the same boat, like people going to other states for rotations and things like that. How do you keep everyone connected and also still involved? Is there sort of like a trick to it? Or is it mainly just like if you happen to be in the location of the school, then you're good? I don't know. Can any of you guys like speak to that from personal experience?
I can speak a little bit about that. I'm up in North Louisiana, which is a lot more spread out than like the Louisiana that probably all of you have heard of with New Orleans and Baton Rouge and all that. That's actually quite far from us. So our school rotates here in Shreveport, and we also rotate over in Monroe. And we're lucky that some of our doctors actually do cover a university that's closer to that side. And so when the people are there, they can go and shadow and do the coverage at this university that's nearby with some of our doctors. Then the people in Shreveport also have opportunities. So for us, we're lucky enough that while we are a little bit spread out at times, we have opportunities in both places. It's just keeping up communication through email and through GroupMe and trying to keep track of who's where to make sure that if there's an opportunity, they know about it and they're able to get to it.
And, to answer your question about IMG, so I was an IMG as well, or I am an IMG as well. So I kind of understand what you're saying in terms of, when you're international, when you're on the island, et cetera. When you're on the island, everything's great. Everyone's there, tons of opportunities, tons of intramurals or whatever local, events, whether it's, cricket or rugby or whatever to cover, running, track, marathons, things like that. You can do all that kind of stuff. But if you're in the Caribbean, then you tend to not have a home base institution like a University of Wisconsin would, where, everyone's at University of Wisconsin or even CMU, where there's tons of people there located centrally. So once you go overseas, for those of you who aren't really, privy to that information, once you go overseas, you're at your institution there, you do all your preclinical sciences, M1, M2, and then, you take your step, you come back stateside and you do all your rotations at affiliated institutions, whether it's like, I don't know, like Mayo's or like Mayo Jacksonville, wherever you're affiliated with. So in that sense, it's very difficult. I can understand where you're saying is, hey, we're localized for the first 2 years and then we're all dispersed and there's really no way to communicate. I would say that's where like a Discord or Instagram or a Twitter page or, a group email, which is hard because once you become a resident, you get a different email. So it's kind of hard there, but, I would say a WhatsApp, most international grads, know WhatsApp as well. So that would be a way to stay in touch, and then not necessarily everyone getting their own unique experience. You know, if one person in the group ends up in New York for rotations and one's in Florida for rotations, how can you say you're having the same experience? Well, what you can do with your leadership is say, okay, to continue to be a part of this SIG, we need you to complete X amount of game coverage, and maybe outline not a contract, but just an understanding of SIG members to say, hey, I'm an active member in this SIG, and this is how I show my active membership. You can still, with the, you know, with the benefits of Zoom and Skype and the things like that, have meetings where you're doing journal clubs or didactics or having virtual speakers or attending AMSSM, you know, sanctioned talks. But in the same, you know, breath, you can have whoever is your faculty advisor on the island also see you through virtually, and just making sure that you're meeting these boxes, whether it's pre-participation physicals or participating in you know, game coverage wherever is local to you, and just trying to be involved, or presenting at a journal club, or presenting a didactic to your group. So there's ways to be involved that don't necessarily, you know, have to mean you're on the sideline covering something. Ideally, that's what you want, but, you know, sports is a little bit more than that as well. Just to offer you some suggestions there.
Great. All right. I'll go ahead and launch our next poll. And this one will kind of pertain to what we were just talking about, actually, a nice launch board, and thinking about interest group events. And I think this will give us a really great idea of what each of our interest groups looks like and how we can kind of frame things going forward, especially if you're trying to implement a new interest group. I'll give you a second to read through all of these and answer. All right, I'll end the poll in about 15 to 20 seconds, in case you haven't answered yet or you're still reading. All right. Let me share the results here. So, questions, what format looks like most people are doing in-person and Zoom meetings. And a lot of people are meeting once a quarter. And I'd love to hear what other, or like how often people meet, maybe if it's like just once a semester or something like that. And it looks like people are meeting via Zoom, maybe like once a month or something. And yeah, a lot of people enjoying hands-on presentations or demonstrations, which are always a little bit more complicated to put together, as we all know, but feel like make the best kind of learning experience. Didactics, casting and splinting, and then other, I haven't seen anything in the chat yet, but if you have any other suggestions in the chat, would love to hear them. And then, yeah, least interesting. Sometimes didactic lectures or other lectures can be a little dull, but I think if you have the right topic, can be really interesting. So love to hear what, if you have didactic options, what you typically like to talk about. The questions that I have for the student panel are kind of getting a feel for what your interest group looks like. So one, how many people are in your interest group? How many participate or how many usually come to your meetings? And then how often you meet with your leadership team.
I can go first. So, my interest group actually just started this semester. We just started it, so we got 62 people signed up on our listserv. Um, and their first meeting had about 20 people. It was like an intro to sports medicine meeting, so it was mostly like a bunch of first years who had no idea what they were doing in med school and were like, help. But it was fun. Um, and we just meet with we try and do like monthly meetings. So I guess our second meeting ever is tomorrow. So we meet like once a month with the leadership to like go over like what are we gonna do for our next meeting.
Go ahead, Jess.
So we tend to meet the leadership team because it is the ortho sports med interest group. We have 9 leads, and we tend to meet as a leadership team before every event that is sponsored by the team, with the exception of events that are crossover events where only 1 or 2 members of the leadership team were part of the planning committee. But our casting workshops, our sports med spotlights, things like that, the whole leadership team will meet beforehand. And we meet, I wouldn't say it's, twice a month or once a month. It ends up being sometimes once a month, sometimes 4 times a month, depending on how many activities we have. Because we just like doing the debrief on a regular basis about previous events, and then also kind of the last minute, regroup and make sure everything is going to go off without a hitch for upcoming events.
We have, I think, about 75 people on our mailing list for our group. Typically, we hold general body meetings usually once a semester, sometimes twice if there's something going on. And then we'll usually have 1 workshop per semester. I think the one we're planning for this semester has to do with shoulders. So we'll have kind of a didactic on common shoulder injuries, common treatments. Usually when we have lectures, we might, our faculty advisor might bring like his ultrasound probe, and he'll teach us how to ultrasound a certain joint if you're looking for this or that. And that way it kind of gets you out of the didactic part enough to keep it interesting, but you're still learning a lot. And usually when we have those, typically 15 to 20 people will show up. And then when we have more like sideline coverage shadowing events, we'll have a lot more interest, and we'll have to kind of do a first come, first serve sign up for those sorts of things.
I would say so we have probably a list for our school about a little over 100. Now, typically the active members are first and second year students because the 3rd and 4th years are quite busy. So I'd say an active group, we have about maybe 50 to 60. And we have a leadership team of 4 of us, and we have kind of different like specialties represented between PM and R, which I'm interested in, ortho, family med, different people in our leadership team, the 4 of us. We meet as a leadership team usually as a formal meeting every month, but we text a lot in a group chat together as we go along with our events. And we actually don't hold any official meetings as like a whole sports medicine interest group, but we try to have at least 1 to 2 events per semester where it's like a major like evening event with food. We try to, make it really attractive. And we usually try to make it related to the volunteer events we have. So this semester we have a ton of Friday Night Lights, high school football, sideline coverage. And so we had a big event before that to kind of like train the students about what kind of things they might see, how they can be prepared, concussion protocol, things like that. And we had some of the local sports med physicians and fellows at our related fellowship program come and help teach us in different rotations. And so we like to hold like, I guess, kind of big events, but not really official meetings as a group. And then we have a lot of volunteer opportunities throughout the semester that our members participate in.
Jess, I saw you raise your hand. Sorry to put you on hold, Ryan.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, so I was going to say, so I think I was looking at our group meet because that's how we usually communicate. And we have about 67 members, but similar to kind of what you guys had all expressed, I would say at our events, and the nice thing is you guys all kind of stated it too. The great thing about sports medicine is we're kind of already thinking 2 steps ahead. And so the opportunities within sports medicine that we offer are, a really great opportunity for anyone applying internal med, sports med, PM&R, just so many. And so I think that's why our membership is so high. And I would say on a regular basis, we get about 15 plus. It depends on the event. But the great thing is we implemented a journal club with Dr. Bermudez. And so every month, that's a really nice touching point for everybody part of the student interest group to come and attend. And we've been presenting like the top 120 AMSSM approved journal articles. And so it's a great opportunity for students to actually present a journal article. We don't get too, into the weeds of it because we really want to allow first and second years to come and attend. And it's really, just a nice brief overview of things like concussion. And then kind of similar to what Milan was saying, that we have like multiple sports coverage opportunities as well. But I would say as a group, we for sure meet every year around the fall, because that's when our M1s are coming in and we really want to get them. That's the general body meeting where we introduce what is sports medicine and what are the paths to it, especially for the non-operative sports medicine side. But yeah, so a lot of touching points, but I think the journal club has been kind of a highlight for me when we started that, because it's been awesome to see, second years presenting journal articles, and it's like a great skill to develop as a medical student, then moving into residency.
Go ahead, Ryan.
So again, our school is a bit smaller. We have each class starts with 50, so theoretically we should have 200, or probably closer to 190. The number of people that volunteer with us is about 50, so a little more than a third of our school, but realistically maybe 20 people consistently do it. The way our sports med group is set up is we have a president, a vice president, and then about 5 subgroups under. And that's anything between research, volunteering, military medicine is also under our group. And we attract a lot more people by segmenting out things like that. For meetings, I've been part of this group for 4 years now, and we've changed things a bit since COVID hit. As a first year, we did everything in person. COVID hit in my spring semester. And we decided that we should do everything else through Zoom after that, since we couldn't get in person. And over the past year and a half or so, we've kept that going. The majority of what we do is over Zoom. We still get about 20 to 30 people about once a month, once every other month, coming to Zoom meetings. And then we reach out individually to each subgroup leader to see how they're progressing, what else we can do for them, what kind of research projects they need lifted off the ground, things like that. And we're also fortunate, we have an athletic training undergrad department here at UT Austin. So we decided to do some physical exam training with them. And I highly encourage if any of you guys can do some interprofessional things with your undergrad institution. It's a great learning experience for both yourself and for them. There's also usually a lot of pre-meds that are in those pre-health professions, and they would love some shadowing, some advice from you guys. So we do a little bit of that, and then we also do a social event maybe once a quarter or so, just to get some networking going throughout our school.
That's a great idea, Ryan. Jacob, do you have something to add?
Yeah, and so we're a little more informal with the meetings. Like we'll have the leadership meetings where we discuss what type of events we'll want to have. Then we'll send out invitations to every student in the college about different events we're having. Be it like, cause so like one that's coming up in like 2 days, we're doing an ultrasound event where we have like six or seven providers coming to instruct on to show more advanced ultrasound techniques and stuff like that, and that attracts a lot of people throughout the college. So on those type of event. We have in casting clinics too, but with those, we typically have to cap the amount of students on like a first come, first served basis, because more students want to go to them than we have spots for, but it's been very helpful to be able to just say no directly, but we have used the more informal Zoom meetings and then in-person activities.
It's always a great problem to have too many students for room, because you know that it's a popular event and you're like, oh, that's an easy one to do again. So thanks for all your thoughtful responses. I have a question for the faculty champions. What have you seen to be most successful in your student interest groups in terms of student roles, event types, and transitions in leadership especially?
All right, Dr. V, I'll go first. I saw you unmute there. You got me hopeful. Free food? No, I'm just kidding. Whenever there's food at meetings, people love it when it's in person. But to echo what a lot of you said, just any types of synergy that you can have with the meeting seems to work well. I'm trying to think of past events before COVID. So we might do a hands-on workshop to talk about lower extremity injuries. That would be the didactics. The hands-on part might be like a teaching of the physical examination, and then we'll go into covering like a 10K or something. That seems to work really well for the group. I think most people are looking for things to add to their CV. So anything that involves either shadowing or research is always really big. For the faculty, it's always a little bit heavier on their schedule to do those sort of things, but there's ways to work around that as well. So, I mean, I was only half kidding with the free food. Getting funding is always kind of interesting with the universities. Our one comes from, I guess, the main university. So it's like the undergrad will fund it, but then it's part of the med school. So it always gets a little kind of tricky for that, for the meeting nourishment and stuff. But yeah, people always love coming to meetings to hear talks, but also get free food.
I guess to kind of expand on a little bit of what everyone else has said, I think things that have worked really well for us, and that's kind of a multi-part question in terms of like the student roles and the groups and things like that. From that aspect, having leaders at the med school at different levels, like M1, 2, 3, and 4, and making sure that the 3s and 4s are working together and the 1s and 2s are working together, and the 3s are mentoring the 2s as well, because we have an expanded campus. So we have a clinical campus, and then we have the basic like M1, M2 year type campus. So it's split. We're moving and consolidating it all to one spot, but in the interim, with this split campus, making sure that everyone's talking and assigning roles really allows us to have a pipeline of leadership, because I think what I had mentioned earlier was sustainability, right? Like you guys move on and matriculate, but Dr. Young and myself are still here. And if you guys leave and there's no one to follow and there's no pipeline of people, it's maybe valid for the 4 years that you guys are here, and then it'll dissolve with the last person. So I think that having that type of feeder systems pertinent, and then the students are also looking forward to their roles in the SIG, just like Dr. Young said. Everyone's looking for things to put on their CV that are unique, and we actually want our SIG to mean something. So we say like, hey, these are like some minimum requirements that we expect of you. Nothing terrible, but if you're going to be an active participant and you want to be able to say on your CV, like, yes, I was a CMU SIG person. I attended like a workshop, I presented at a journal club. Because at the end, Dr. Young and I can't write 67 letters of recommendation either. So we have to be able to, parse you all out, because we know these are SIG groups and everyone's just dabbling here and there, and everyone changes their mind as you get rotations. You thought you were doing sports and you do HEMONC, and then you love HEMONC and we never see you again. So there's that. So having representation at all the campuses has been key for us. Our leadership, our student leadership is excellent, I would say. They're going out and making relationships with the community stakeholders and getting people involved in terms of, reaching out to Parks and Rec and trying to get involved with like coaching and Little League and kickball. That's something to do. Special Olympics. Last time I checked, all the states have Special Olympics and they're always looking for medical help and coverage. So that's something else. 5Ks, if you can't find one, we make one. Just that kind of stuff, like the initiative, the want to. We do come out with a list of activities that are available for each M year, like M1, 2, 3, 4. I said we have a split campus earlier. So our M1s have a unique set of opportunities that they're available for. And we basically only expect them to like know where the bathroom is, go to their classes, and maybe check into a couple meetings. So there's nothing, we have no real hard expectations for them, but we want to let them know, hey, as an M1, here's a bunch of things that are available to you. So if you have a free weekend and you're not studying for biochem and there's something going on, you're more than welcome to, show up. We really try to be inclusive and encourage people. We offer a wide range of participation events, whether it's the monthly journal club where we're doing the AMSSM 120, which I think every group can do because it's virtual. You just read an article and you guys talk about it, right? I'm the medical director for my institution. So we have 6 high schools that we oversee with my partners. So there's always like a Friday night game to go to. We have a Saturday morning clinic that happens right after. We do a ton of sports physicals, probably about 800 at all the various schools that we cover in the community. So that's another opportunity for people to get involved. We do training rooms. So our physicians go to the high schools and we do training rooms. So that's another opportunity for students to, attach to our hip and come with us and go to the schools and triage. Eventually we're going to have a casting workshop. We've actually done one for a different group, but we're going to do it more for our SIG participants. And then posters, AMSSM posters. AMSSM wants you to be involved. M1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter. Residents as well. Our journal club is actually partnered with the residents as well to get more interest into our family medicine residency. So that's another dovetail to get people interested. If I'm at the journal club for sports medicine, we have a sports med track in our family medicine, and it kind of keeps everyone interested and maybe wanting to stay in house and stay at CMU a little longer. But AMSSM posters, it's basically you see a patient, you get an HPI, you put on a poster, and you come up with a discussion. It's not hard to do. And, that's another thing, right? People are looking for things to put on their CV and ways to be involved. So we have a ton that's offered. It's just a matter of you showing the effort that you want to be there. And I think as a group, our leaders really make sure that these opportunities are out there on the group me and out there on the Excel sheets, and we're getting people to sign up consistently. And Jess, if you want to expand on that at some point.
All I was going to add to it is that we're very fortunate to have an incredible faculty mentor in Dr. Bermudez. He's the most invested faculty mentor I've literally ever come across. And so I think for all of us med students, we can definitely take a page from those that you come across as a medical student that are super invested in your learning and really wanting to bring you along and to make you better. And so I think that's a huge takeaway too, is that when we're one day in that position, we kind of look back at the people that really, took the time outside of their regular clinic hours. And so, yeah, Dr. Bermudez, you rock. Clearly, you guys can see.
Hey, Dr. B, when do you sleep, man? It sounds like you're busy.
Yeah, I know, man. It's tough, but we're a newer program, so we gotta grind it out a little bit. But I do have partners that are involved as well. So it's not me just covering 6 schools. I have a couple partners that are stationed at other schools, and they're on the sign up sheet as well. So the students can go to the training rooms and they can go to the Saturday clinics and the like. So we're grinding. It's like our tax season for football, like everyone else. But then we get a little break here shortly.
All right, great. Really excellent discussion so far. Really happy to hear what all you have going on at your schools, and it sounds like we have really great diversity. I think we'll go on to the next poll question, kind of revolving around social media and kind of reaching our, oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was sharing that whole time. But figuring out how we connect with our students and what's been most successful. So go ahead and take about a minute or so to answer this poll question. We'll wait for just a few more responses. Awesome. All right. I'll go ahead and end the poll and share the results with y'all. So there's about a little less than half of us that aren't currently connected to the AMSSM on social media. I think that's a really excellent way to figure out what events are coming up and know what resources are available for students as well. And I think that advertising the AMSSM to your student interest group members as well is a way for them to be more involved, mostly through Instagram, which I'm not surprised by. And if anyone has any ideas on how we can make more connections with medical students, feel free to share them in the chat as we're going along. Let me make sure that I actually stop sharing the poll response this time. All right, and then questions that I have for the panelists at this point, feel free, anyone who wants to answer is more than welcome to. What are some specific ways to generate interest and connection among medical students on social media sites? And then I'd also love to know how you advertise your events or programs, and whether you do RSVPs and what you find to be most successful. Yeah, Discord is a wonderful, wonderful idea. We have a Discord for each one of our classes, and it's brilliant. Better than email, for sure.
We tend to use Slack for our messaging. It kind of like a Discord in terms of each class has their own channel, but then the school has channels built in, and then each interest group has their own channel also. So it gives us the opportunity to message all of the student body or just a certain group. And then we do posters, both physical posters on campus, but then also on Slack, utilizing that. And much like some of the other members have said, we advertise to the whole student body, M1 through M4, instead of just the student interest group themselves.
So we communicate through GroupMe with our leadership team. We use Teams for communication throughout our school. Our school requires us to use Teams for all official communication, so we're forced to use Teams. For RSVPing, we use Sign Up Genius for all of our events. In the city of Austin, we generally have 36 events every few months for sporting stuff going around the city, anywhere between high schools, UT Austin, college, and then some of the professional teams around here as well, our sports med docs cover. So we have a lot of stuff. And our students, we don't have enough interest to cover all those events. So we have some other Texas med schools that we'll send out the RSVP list to as well, and they get involved in some of our events. So for smaller schools, I think it's important to realize there are some other med schools that may need some more sporting events to see that they may not have already. We're just fortunate enough in this city that we have too much to cover.
We have a few different ways in which we kind of put out information. So we also use our schools like Discord to we have a page for just specifically for interest group events that we put stuff on. We send out an email to all the people who have signed up for our listserv, and then we have a calendar events that we email the webmaster for that, and they include our events on the calendar for that. Something else we found actually more recently that really helps to get information out is that when we partner with other interest groups, so we partner with orthopedics or pediatrics or family medicine, then we kind of get a broader, even people who may have not been interested in sports med, oh, there's a crossover, oh, I'm interested in family medicine or pediatrics or something like that, then they also kind of get involved. And so we kind of have a higher attendance that way as well. And then we use a lot of Google forms just to like for our own events that we host, and then Sign Up Genius for some of the volunteer events we have. And then some volunteer events are just done through, like if we do mass events like a marathon or Ironmans and things like that, usually there's like a volunteer sign up specifically for the sites. Something Dr. Bermudez mentioned earlier, Special Olympics. We have partnered with Special Olympics Arizona at our school, and so we use their signups for like a lot of our medical students volunteering as well, which has been a great partnership as well. So just I think reaching out and like getting, you know, involved with other groups on your own campus and then in the community helps a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like all of you have really excellent ways of reaching out to students and great signups, and great to know for people who are looking to start an interest group on kind of how you might reach out to your students. I want to be respectful of our time, so I'll move on to the next poll. And this one is specifically about the AMSSM and whether you're connected with the AMSSM and things that you'd like to see of how to connect the AMSSM to your individual medical students. All right, go ahead and end and share. So quite a few of us connected with the AMSSM, which is not surprising considering we're all here. But I think a lot of medical schools around the US maybe aren't. And then, yeah, that a lot of students don't know what the AMSSM or the services that are available. And that's something that we're working towards as student leaders in the AMSSM to have more communication with our interest groups. And we'll work on sharing more schools in the future. So questions for panelists, and we'll try to wrap up soon, is if you feel that the members of your interest group know about the AMSSM and what exactly you might like to have the AMSSM provide or offer for your student interest group, and possibilities that you could see going forward. And that's open to the students and the faculty as well.
Okay, so I think in terms of our interest group, we do let them know that they have the opportunity to join AMSSM as students, and we kind of let them know that the cost is lower and what the benefits would be. In terms of how we might make it more beneficial, it might be fun if we could start something like buddy interest groups. So like you with another school somewhere else, and you could kind of chat with their officers and bounce ideas off each other. And it could kind of make more of a sense of community within the groups. But then you could also, you know, give information about, oh, well, I really like being in this area for this reason. And it can kind of be something that builds as we go further along in our medical journeys.
I was going to say too, encouraging all your med students to go to the AMSSM meeting, because it's honestly such a great experience. And, you know, whether you want to go into sports med or not, there's, you know, an incredible people presenting research there in all fields of medicine, and obviously through the pathway of sports medicine. But I think at that event too, it's great connecting with other med students, and there's usually a medical student table. And last year that was really fun to hang out around, because residents and med students would come up and we'd meet each other through that. But I also think, and this is something maybe we can work on for this coming AMSSM, is to have an actual like medical student event. And, you know, that could encourage more med students to also come to the meeting. So I feel like that's something that we could really work on for this next.
Are you talking about the annual meeting, Jessica?
Yeah, the AMSSM annual meeting.
Definitely connect with me on that, because it's in Phoenix next year.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm in Phoenix, obviously. So I would love to facilitate some kind of medical student event or something. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, and it would be great to get your whole medical student interest group there, because it's so easy, right?
We're right there.
So.
Perfect. Yeah.
Awesome.
Great. Well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I have one question from an audience member he was wondering, their medical school follows the AAMC guidelines for interest groups, which states that the interest group can only be for residency programs and not for fellowship programs. And so he was wondering if that's been an issue for anyone in this panel, or if you were able to circumvent it if it was a problem. Anyone who's experienced that?
I would just say, like, we used to be a sports med, like ortho, similar to what some of you guys had expressed. And we went to our school and we were able to show them the documents that the AMSSM has on their website, where you actually have to apply to be a charter med school of AMSSM. And so there's, that could help in your case, because obviously it's very different in terms of doing the operative versus non-operative. And so having a charter med school that's specific to AMSSM, which is, non-operative, I feel like could maybe help you in talking with your school. So I don't know, that's all I could think of, but.
Yeah, Jacob, did you have something to add?
Yeah, our school was fine with creating with the organization. It's just that they have us jump through all these like paperwork filling out for interest groups, and you guys probably had too. So it's just they're pretty flexible.
Great. And I think if we all want to list our emails in the chat, Ryan, you're more than welcome to talk in just a second. If we all list our emails in the chat, that way, if any of you audience members want to contact any of us with any extra questions, you're more than welcome to. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I think if you're having any troubles to realize, though, it's just the name of your group, and what your group actually does is what's important. If they want you to name it family medicine or orthopedic surgery, that's fine, but you can do your own sports med thing outside of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll start wrapping up. I just wanted to show everyone kind of the AMSSM website. And if you go to the membership tab here and the student member or resources.
It looks like this device isn't registered.
Sorry,
you can find setup instructions in the help section of your Alexa app.
My Alexa is getting a little crazy. But this is where you can find the student interest group information. There's also a document on here of how to start a student medical interest group for sports medicine. So that's going to be a really excellent guide. There's stuff about Journal Club on here, and we have our upcoming, these are where all of our previously recorded webinars are as well. And we actually have the newly upcoming representatives and officers relapse. And so we'll have applications open now up until the 31st of October that you can apply to be one of the AMSSM MSIG student leadership members, which is a great opportunity to get involved, have more connections, and kind of influence the AMSSM student interest group going forward. So I think this session has been a really excellent interaction between all the panelists and those in attendance. And I want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here tonight. I know that an hour out of our days is not that much, but it feels like quite a lot. Don't forget to become involved in MSIG by either nominating yourself or talking to a friend about becoming one of the MSIG officers. Remember that October 31st is the deadline. And then we'll also have our next MSIG webinar on Tuesday, November 15th at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time to learn about an important grant opportunity available to medical students. That'll be an important webinar to attend the Agostini Medical Student Community Outreach Grant presentation of the 2022 grant recipients, programs, and events. That concludes tonight's webinar. Thank you all so much for being here.